David Buchs, you've been married for 16 years. You have 7 children. Yeah, you've taken 3 calls to different congregations, and all of that is impressive. But your crowning achievement, 20 episodes of the CloudCast. Happy anniversary.
Hey, right back at you, buddy. Did you think when we started what it would feel like to have 20 episodes under our belts? Did you see that far down the line?
Uh, no, no, I thought 19 entirely
Mhm.
possible, but 20, no way.
Okay, so this is good. I've been thinking about uh, giving a little bit of a retrospective this Sunday, my final Sunday here at Concordia and Fairhaven. I realize I'm a little bit. I don't love doing that because I get emotional about things. Let's say. All right. So I don't. But I'm going to do it anyways. A little bit of a retrospective. But here, my point in that is, here's a little retrospective on the last 20 episodes. Right. There's some things to observe. One is we've had how many guests? Let's see. We had Bruce and Ben and Zach and Levi and Rory. Did I miss anybody? I think that's it. Right. We've had five
I think
guests on
so.
our show. We have, as of today, 26 followers on Spotify. We have commenters on our Spotify channel. We have covered 20 chapters of Genesis. And today, we are going to play our first listener voicemail on the Cloudcast. I mean, this is quite a day.
It feels so good. Before I forget your farewell sermon, I should send this to you in a PDF. So I have in my hand Abraham Kuyper. This is Centennial Reader, so an anthology of his work. Dutch theologian, prime minister, Calvinist, fascinating guy. He's got a farewell sermon in here to a congregation that he preached to his last sermon. He only served there for 3 years, but it was really good. And he was warning them against the pitfalls that they're going to face. And he's going to say, you'll be fine without me. It's not really about me. You stick with these things though, and I think you'll enjoy it. And emotions are okay as long as it's not emotionalism.
Right. I only get apprehensive because like it inhibits my ability to speak, like to actually say words. so this is, I mean, I do these things like at funerals, for instance. I have to kind of say the words in a way that is not focusing too much on them because I'll get caught up in them and it'll be hard for me to say the words
Oh,
sometimes.
right, right. Oh, I
Yeah.
gotcha.
So now I do appreciate that, and I would enjoy reading that. It was making me think about how we have a biblical example of a farewell sermon. Paul in Acts chapter 20 gives us his farewell sermon to the people in Ephesus, and it's kind of the same thing, right? I know that wolves will come in after I'm gone, right, seeking to devour the flock. But he's full of the same promises, right? Yeah, stand firm, right? And you have everything you need. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's good. Make them want to run through a wall and celebrate the achievements, but don't rest on your laurels. I was thinking about this in the Lord's Prayer. You pray for daily bread, and you have all the confidence in the world that Jesus is going to do that and give you forgiveness. But then it doesn't stop there. Right? As long as we're living, there's still the devil prowling around. So the last petition is deliver us from evil.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Right. A very, I mean, like a necessarily self-conscious prayer, because you only pray for that. You only think that you need that if you have honestly assessed the situation, right? If you've honestly assessed your own weaknesses and you've used the eyes of faith to see how desperately the devil is trying to attack you, and also the means that he uses. This is my sermon for this Sunday is on. Sorry, for next Wednesday is the last pericope in First Timothy 6, fight the good fight of the faith, which um, Chemnitz's commentary on it, no, John Gerhardt's commentary on it points out the word is agonizomai, right? So it's not fight like warfare, but it's undertake the contest, and it's a physical contest. And Paul loves the imagery of running a race. So it's much more like, like he often says, finish running the race. I was thinking about the value of that picture, because everybody, regardless of your experience with running, quite honestly, regardless of your experience with running, everybody knows what it feels like to be gassed, to know that you can't run any further, or to imagine you can't run any further. And here you're called into this contest where you are instructed to run, and the one who's telling you to run has trained you and nourished you. He knows the course. In fact, he's run it ahead of you, right? So this is not a voyage of discovery where, like Christopher Columbus, you may accidentally land on the American Indies instead of the continent, the Asian continent. It's not a voyage of discovery. The path has already been trod. He knows the course, and he knows what you're capable of. So when he drives you, when he says run faster now or run slower now, he's saying whatever you need in order to finish the race, right? So all you have to do literally is put one foot in front of the other. That's all you have to do. It's so good.
Oh, that is great. I do think you said Paul loves this imagery of running the race, and he certainly uses it. But don't you get the sense that Paul's not really an athlete?
Well, it's okay. So what makes you think that? What gives you that sense?
Well, he mentions his frail body, right, at other points. And so he'll often mix in different metaphors, agriculture, various things like that. And sometimes it seems like he's trying to be all things to all people, right? So I'm gonna throw in this reference to the Vikings, even though I don't know anything about the purple and gold.
Right.
But
right. Which is laudable. That's a laudable thing.
Yep, it is. And maybe I should try that. I try not to use illustrations which I know nothing about. But sometimes I do this with words. And your teacher told you not to do this, not to use words you didn't know what they meant. But I got a feeling Shakespeare did this because he just made up words. It's like, oh, that sounds good. And connotation is more important. If you throw the right emotionalism behind it, people will understand what you're saying.
Yeah, there's something to if we know what you mean, it's okay. You're allowed to use the word that way, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Cool. Well, what do we got? What do we got here for a listener question? I'm excited.
Yeah. Let me. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna pull it up and play it, and then we can discuss. This is kind of fun. Let's see here. I'm going to turn down the volume because I think when I played it earlier, it was a little bit too loud. Let's try this.
Hi, I have a question. First of all, let me say I really enjoy your podcast.
I just have to stop it there because that's the best part of the call. He really enjoys our podcast. I mean, that's fantastic.
Well, yeah, just stop the podcast thing right there. That's the listener question. Thank you.
We appreciate your love and affection. Okay, I'll play the whole thing. Here's the
only thing that could have been better if you called in and go, "Hi, first time listener, long time caller."
That's right. Okay, all right. 39 seconds. Here's the whole thing.
Hi, I have a question. First of all, let me say I really enjoy your podcast. I have a theological question. And that is, do the departed who are waiting around in heaven, are they aware of what is happening on earth? I heard strong comments both ways. Popular culture certainly says that they are, but popular culture gets a lot about heaven wrong. And so I'm wondering, is there a Lutheran perspective on whether those who are in heaven are aware of what's happening on earth? Thanks. Bye.
That's a nice question. A nice, thoughtful question. Good job.
Yeah. No. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. This question touches on a lot of theological topics. First broad one would be what we call the intermediate state. So what happens between death and the resurrection, particularly for the Christian. And he said that he's heard strong opinions on both sides, and yeah, you're right. People have gotten brought up on charges for this very thing, haven't they, David?
Yeah, well, and so this is interesting. We should there's some historical phenomenon even in particularly in the state of Minnesota, I think, about this very topic, that it was kind of a stir for a time in the state of Minnesota in the last half century, let's say. Interesting.
Yeah, right. So I certainly have kind of thought this out. And I've got a lot of relevant biblical passages, which is probably the best way of answering the question. But broadly speaking, do you want to just tackle it?
Yeah. So I think this is a helpful a question to undertake in a very systematic way. And maybe so what do we know biblically? What do we know of a certainty biblically? But also, before we do that, I just want to throw out a couple of things that I think are challenging about the question. One of them is the use of the word heaven. So the scriptural use of the word heaven is ambiguous at times, and our conception of what that means is also clouded, right? Are you picturing streets paved with gold? Are you picturing the nearer presence of Christ? Are you picturing heavenly bodies? Are you picturing a new heavens and a new earth, and that's what you're describing as heaven? Are you picturing the throne room of God? It's just there's some ambiguity there.
Okay.
Secondly,
let's stop on the heaven question.
Okay.
So probably I think the best way to answer that is it 2 Corinthians? Paul describes being taken into the third heaven. So what's great about that then is then you clearly have three different heavens. So the first would be the sky, right? The Uranos, and God creates the heavens, Genesis 1. So that would be the first heaven, right? Looking up to the sky. Second level of heaven then would be outer space, the heavens. And then the third heaven would be this other dimension, which is typically what we think about when we speak about heaven, where God is reigning. What's mind-boggling about it is that it's another dimension, and yet it's right next to us at the same time.
Yes, and therein lies some of the difficulty, because of course you used proximal language, right, next to us, and then there's also temporal language, right, because the third heaven is wherever God is outside of time, right? So you have these two constraints, time and space, that really bind the way we think about presence, human presence. And when we're talking about heaven, we're talking about something that defies those categories, right? So what does it mean, for instance, for a soul to be somewhere? Like when we think about a person being somewhere, we're talking about their body being localized. And this is, of course, you get all these, the great sacramentarian kind of controversies, because you've got a local presence of Christ that is also everywhere, right? But that's related then is it's challenging, because of course you got the sky and you've got the heavens above, just like you said, but there's this other thing that kind of busts our typical categories for thinking about presence, right?
Yeah, you were talking, and it made me think of the 21 grams experiment. Are you familiar with that?
What the soul weighs? Yeah.
Yeah, back in 1907. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, good.
Yeah,
well, okay. So
guy,
that go for it. Go ahead. Explain it.
I mean, the experiment's so silly because he weighs the guy before he dies and then weighs him after, and the difference is 21 grams. So that's how much the soul weighs.
Yeah. I mean, it's I love it. I love how confounding it is that God does things. God operates in categories beyond what we can conceive of, even in our essence, our being, right? I am body and soul, and yet all I can kind of handle is my material body. Like that's all I can deal with. I can't comprehend my soul. This is, as far as philosophy goes, this is what they call the hard problem. We've talked about consciousness before, like the hard problem of consciousness. What on earth is a soul, and how do you describe it given that only all that we've got are material categories, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So in Invictus, you know that poem ends famously, "I am the captain of my soul."
Yeah. Yeah.
Good good luck, buddy.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. So that gets there's another kind of question there concerning the soul, and knowing. Okay. So the listener question was, what do souls in heaven know about what's going on earth? And one of the challenges there, I think, is that we really only have categories for talking about things that you know based on physical perception. So I know things because I see them, I hear them, I touch them, I taste them, I smell them. And I'm not sure what it means to talk about what a soul knows. That's not to say it's not, in fact, souls do know things, but I don't know how you describe that, right? What is it? I mean, clearly God knows things and he doesn't rely on sensory organs to know things. But what does it mean for a human soul to know things without sensory organs? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's good. So this was like a tertiary place to go to answer the question, but it fits naturally here. Transfiguration.
Uh-huh.
Perfectly relevant because you got Moses and Elijah. So Moses dies, and Luke tells us what they're talking about. Our Lord's exodus, meaning his upcoming death, right? And so clearly they're aware of the plan and they're rooting for it. So they know what's going on. Now, when Peter sees them, he recognizes it's them, but is that them corporally, or is it a vision? Like, is he only seeing an apparition of them, or are they physically there? Now, because Elijah, so this raises a separate question for Elijah. So if the souls don't know anything, is Elijah? He never died. Is he just in a separate compartment of heaven?
Yeah, right, right.
Is he
Body and
just hanging?
soul. Yeah,
Yeah, is he just hanging out with Enoch?
right, right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so great, right? Because it's kind of like it's not incoherent, but it raises questions that we really just like. How do you how do you answer that? Okay, so tease that out a little bit. So Peter, they recognize somehow that it's Moses and Elijah. You could, of course, say Jesus maybe addressed them by name, and that's how they know. But I prefer to think that there's something about their presence that made it clear who they were, Moses and Elijah. Also,
So,
we do know. Go ahead.
well, so Elijah physically, I'm imagine he's still wearing his camel hair clothing and the leather belt, and the king immediately recognizes who it is when he asks, "Well, what was he wearing?" Right. So
Right, right.
that's such a timeless look. Now, this is conjecture, and you can write this off. But according to the Septuagint, you know, the translation about Moses having horns, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Maybe
I
that's
mean,
what it is.
you see a guy with a glowing face who's got horns and camel's hair. It's like, oh, well, obviously, who else is it going to be on this mountain? So maybe Peter just knows the Bible too, that it's not going to be anybody else hanging out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that may well be. There's also and I don't know how far afield it's worth going on this subject, but there's also something about how do you want to put it? Like the evidence that comes from people's experiences of strange spiritual phenomena, right? So demons exhibit their presence sometimes through interacting with material things, a poltergeist, right? Banging cupboards, knocking things over. So physical manifestations. But then there's also like a palpable presence that people describe that's not through direct physical, mediated through their body, but it's just sense. It's a sense that there's a presence there, right? And of course, like if you're watching the Discovery Channel and you're watching Ghost Hunters, whatever, forget about that. That's all staged, generally, I think. But nonetheless, these kinds of experiences are, they occur. Moreover, there's a sense that there's a personal presence. It's not an abstract presence, but it's a personal presence with an identity. And I think you could say, I mean, without sounding too hokey, I think you could imagine the same sort of thing, that like Peter's signature is perceptible when he shows up, Moses' signature is perceptible when he shows up because of course he's unique, right? Just like you would recognize somebody's face, and it would be odd not to be able to recognize somebody's face. Somebody's soul is present. It'd be hard not to recognize them.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay. Another related biblical passage, certainly Hebrews 12, right? We're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, this idea of like cheering us on. So I'll just let the cat out of the bag right away. I think we don't know enough to like say definitely what the souls know, but there is definitely this hint that they know something, and it's going to be whatever God wants them to know. So I'm more on the side of they know at least a little bit of what's going on. Now I don't know if they're looking through the looking glass or what. Such a great cloud of witnesses, Hebrews 12, Revelation 6, the souls are crying out underneath the altar to God, "Oh Lord, how long?" So they're at least a little bit aware of the terrible things happening on earth.
Yeah, that's right, and a sense of the passage of time, which is perplexing, considering. I regularly try to provide comfort about the time between your death and your resurrection by describing it as slumber, right? So it's she's not dead, she's sleeping, right? Or our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep. Now that's describing what's happened to your body, because you're late in the grave and your body's no longer active, right? But that's a helpful thing in terms of like you're not going to be wondering what your fate will be, right? You're resting at ease.
Yeah, extremely comforting.
Okay. So so you've got Hebrews 12, Revelation 6. You've also got the rich man and Lazarus, which is of dubious significance considering that's a parable, but nonetheless, the rich man seems to recognize what's going on for his brothers and has some interaction with it, right?
So, and that's interesting because that's from hell.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's in torment.
Yeah, right. And there's such a great chasm between heaven and hell, and yet they're able to talk to each other. Yeah.
So part of it feels like that's got to be a how do you want to describe it? It's almost like Jesus is giving a fanciful description of what, suppose you could have a conversation. Here's what it would sound like, right?
Right. That parable, people don't ever want to make any dogmatic assertions about it. But at the same time, it's like, Jesus isn't going to lead us astray with an illustration
Right.
he uses either.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So altogether, you've got clear biblical evidence that souls are perceptive, and that they're not insensible between death and resurrection. What they're up to and what they know and what they perceive is not fully revealed to us. All of that is important for engaging, kind of like, what is the common use of this teaching, or the common interest in this teaching? It's like, what is it? Grandma is looking down from heaven, watching over you, right? Which is, not in the way that you think she is. I don't know.
Right. I mean, if you wanted to say she's joined the great cloud of witnesses, in this generic sense of, cheering us on to the finish line of the faith, right? I don't think there would be anything wrong with that. But if you're going to understand it in this Lion King sort of a way, that she's become one of the stars, like in that sense. Now there again, the language is challenging because in Revelation the angels are compared to stars.
Right. Yeah, that's right. There's always a bit of truth in everything. Do you remember? I'm just looking now. I should have looked this up earlier. When the confessions talk about the worship of the saints, does it say in the confessions somewhere that the reason we don't pray to the saints is because we have no promise that they'll hear our prayers. And and consequently, to ask them to intercede for us is to put our hope, first of all, in a place where there's no certainty, and also to take our hope away from our prayers in Christ. But does it say something about whether or not the saints are praying for us is a possibility? They may be. I think the confessions put it that way. They may be praying for us, but we don't know whether they could hear us.
Well, yeah, that's definitely in there. It's ringing a bell. For sure. And that would be along with Revelation 6 about the souls crying out to God, continually praying still.
Right. Which is, I mean, that is a comforting thought. Your grandma, faithful grandma, who prayed for you while she was alive, when she's busy, waiting for the resurrection, what's she going to be busy with? Well, I mean, not much else, not much better to do than pray for those who she hopes to see in heaven, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's good. And think about widows. So Anna in the Gospel of Luke at the temple day and night still praying. So, bringing it back to Kuyper, he's got this great distinction between a false conservatism and a true conservatism. And the distinction he makes is false conservatism just wants to hang on to the fruit, while true conservatism wants to hang on to the actual tree and the roots. And then theologically, what it means is true conservatism wants to hang on to that which will last in the resurrection. So it's also forward looking too.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, so applying that to today, it's like if we're going to be praying to God all day and all night in the resurrection, why wouldn't we do that right now?
Yeah. That's kind of reminded me of the Luther's snarky remarks about people who had no time to come to church while they were alive. Why would you bring them into church when they are dead? And for a funeral, right? For a Christian burial. But the same thing goes, right? It's like if you weren't interested in worshiping God and praying while you were alive, why are you going to be interested all of a sudden when you die? It's like, no, that's nonsense.
Yeah, if you hate church, you're really going to hate heaven. And it really stinks. It really stinks to be you, because we're going to be singing with the angels, and it's going to be pretty great. I mean, like 12-part harmony.
That's right. I get these YouTube short suggestions now because I've watched enough YouTube shorts that it knows the kinds of things I'm interested in. And one of the really cool things that I get is musical stuff. So there are these guys who are sitting at a trap set, drum trap set, and they're playing, 5 different meters at the same time, counting in 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 all at the same time with their hands and their feet. And I'm like, man, that's amazing. And I think we're all going to be able to do that in heaven, and it's going to sound awesome.
That's cool. Or is their skin color blue?
No, it's not. That's a throwback. Is the Blue Man Group still around? I don't know if they still are.
I saw a video of them on Drumeo, which is a cool YouTube channel. This is an aside, but speaking about rhythm, they bring on drummers who've never heard these songs before. They take out the drum track, and then they say, play a drum track that you would play on top of this. So it's pretty cool to see how the rhythmic mind works. Do my sermons ever show up on your YouTube shorts?
They do. Yes. Yeah. I usually swipe past it really quick, but it keeps on showing them. So
I'm always interested to see what gets the most dislikes, because then I know it's good. So the one that got the most dislikes was this one about how we love complaining, and I thought it was so great that I said we love complaining so much, and that got the most complaints.
Maybe there's just a whole batch of ironic YouTube Shorts listeners out there.
Maybe. Do you have anything to add to this intermediate state saints aware?
I was just thinking about your comment that, not directly, but just your comment that you'll be disappointed and you're going to be missing out on the 12-part harmony in heaven. I was thinking about Jesus's description of those who are left outside, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Um, and I mean, he's not goofing around, you know. Uh, and I think that it's the tragedy. The tragedy is that, like you've often said, wouldn't it be great if people ran up to you and said, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And yet, so few people are asking that question. And yet, at the same time, everybody in their heart of hearts, at some point, experiences that, you know, that dark solitude in the middle of the night, where you're just it's just you and yourself, and your uncertainty about the future. And that's and to imagine that's just a slight taste of what absence from God, what the absence of God will mean for eternity, is tragic. It's horrible, and people need to be rescued from it. You know, like that 12-part harmony is glorious, and we want you to be singing in that choir with us, right?
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts about hell, because there's polls show that more people believe that hell is real than believe that the Bible is the Word of God. Which maybe that's a psychological thing worth diving into, or maybe it's because like deep down we know that there are people who are so horrible we can't picture them going to heaven. And throw in your stereotypical people who have done horrible things. Like people say, well, hell must be real because you got to have a place to put Hitler and Stalin and all these people. But it's kind of like that's for the other people, not for me.
That's right. Yeah, I think that connected is that people do have a sense generally that there's something worse than death, which is evidenced by the fact that that people commit suicide. People who commit suicide believe that the kind of suffering they're experiencing in this life is worse than physically dying. And I mean, there's the tragedy there, right? That death is not the escape from that suffering that you need. But people are aware of that there are worse things than physically dying. You know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Revelation, they will seek death and they will not find it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, hey, if you've ever had any kind of dark thoughts, just call us. Find a pastor. Pastor Buchs is amazing. Pastoral care. I like to chaz him all the time, but you will find no better shepherd. So if you're anywhere in the general area from Minnesota to Arkansas, call 612-451-MALT.
That's 612-451-6258. Of course, if you're calling because you're having a dark moment, we won't air that on the podcast. So.
Yeah, of course not. We won't. But
do you think? Speaking of that phone number, do you think we answered the question? Is what's the short, succinct? Do people who have died have an awareness of what's going on Earth? The answer is what?
So I think the answer is yes. We're not exactly sure of the details.
There you go. That sounds good. Yeah. Or maybe we can qualify it even further. At least some do, it seems, according to the biblical witness.
Right.
I mean, I could see it being a particular kind of a graciousness that God grants to make you to like that. Many people just get to be unaware. They're not Moses and they're not Elijah, and they're not martyrs waiting for vindication.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly the image is sleep. So. But you can know things in your sleep. It's like you get a dream, right?
Yep.
And dreams come from God, according to the Bible. They can also come from other places too, so be careful. But
right, yeah. Okay, good. How about speaking of dreams? It wasn't by a dream that God told Abraham and Sarah they were going to have a baby. It was through his physical presence, right? He promised them they were going to have a baby, and then they did. That's Genesis 21, right?
Yeah. So my first question for you, Genesis 21, do you like well water?
Yes, I like well water.
Gross.
Why? What other kind of water is there, Josh? You have a little condensation farm going on over there?
I'm perfectly fine with tap water. I mean, depending on the municipality you're living in, St. Cloud water is just fine, and maybe you just get used to it. But I've had enough well water in my life, and I cannot stand the sulfuric taste. It is like rotten eggs.
But the water here in Fairhaven does not taste like sulfur. I've had that experience, and it's not true. It's not true here. But isn't it the case that even your water in St. Cloud came from a well, just a bigger well than the one that feeds my tap?
I'm not sure. I'm not prepared. I don't know. So what's a well? I guess that would be the
Okay,
question.
it's a hole in the ground out of which you pump subterranean water. Right. So what are your options in St. Cloud? Or the Mississippi River? I don't think you're getting your. Are you getting your drinking water from the Mississippi River?
I
Probably
I
not.
think so.
Oh, is that
I think
right?
so. Yeah, I think it goes
Huh.
through obviously because there's the water sanitary plant right there in the Mississippi. Just ran by it yesterday. Beautiful place. So I think so. I could be wrong on that. It's got to come from somewhere though.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So, why do you care about well water?
Well, so at the end of the chapter, this is the treaty with Abimelech. Abraham digs a well, and he calls it Beersheba. Which how great is it that you got the word beer there for well.
It's great. That's great.
Well of the seven. Now this is not the first well mentioned. I believe the first well would be all the way back in chapter 16, and this is related because that is Hagar. That's Genesis 16:14, and this is after they're cast away, and then they find a well, and it's called Bir Lahai Roy, which means well of the living one who sees me.
So the relationship to Hagar, of course, ties it as a thread, but then also you get this common theme that you could say, if you're looking for a husband, you should go to the well to find a husband, right? And so in 16, she finds the Lord looking after her, right? God saw her and called her and looked after her. And here you've got this well, Beersheba, that is, what did you say, the well of the seven? Or, I mean, it's ambiguous, right? Because Sheba could be seven or oath, right? The well of an oath, because they swore an oath there. These 7 ewe lambs that you will take from my hand, that they may be a witness for me that I dug this well, right? So what's the connection there to finding a husband?
Right. So I mean, you got to make the observation. A lot of people meet at wells. So Rebecca and Isaac, and then Jacob and Rachel, and then Moses and Zipporah, and then obviously John 4, Jesus and the Samaritan woman. So here's how I'll kind of couch it: is the Genesis is overwhelmingly concerned with the seed, right? The messianic seed. And what do you need for a seed to grow?
Sounds like you need some water, right?
Yeah, you need some water. And obviously you need sunlight, so that'd be Samson, of course, the coming son of righteousness and mentioned in Malachi. And so that's why they're concerned with wells. Obviously you need water to live. But you've got the husband, you got the woman, now you need this life-giving water.
Yeah, interesting. It's funny because this story with Abimelech and the well there is it feels like such a random episode. Of course, you have the connection to Abimelech in the previous chapter. So he's shown up on the scene. Here's the kind of guy he is. He knows now who God is and who Abraham is. So he's demonstrated his fear of God in that he enriches Abraham and sends him away. And in chapter 21, he acknowledges that because God is with you, therefore swear that you're going to be kind to me and my descendants. And then Abraham thinks that Abimelech has committed some treachery because Abimelech's servants seized one of his wells, which both of them, both Abimelech and Abraham, would recognize as kind of like the beginnings of the fulfillment of the promise that this land will belong to Abraham one day. I mean, that's an interesting spot for Abimelech to be in, right? Here he's a king, and he reigns over some territory in this land that he knows will one day belong to Abraham and his descendants. And so he's kind of like he's only like his king is like Jonathan, right? So here, I'll help you out because I know that one day you're going to be your line will be the ruling over this land.
Well, that's good. And so think about their names. So Abimelech here presumably would be father of kings, right? And then you've got Abraham, who is exalted father of a multitude. And up until this point, he's only got one son, two if you count Ishmael. So it's really forward looking. How embarrassing is it for Abraham that he has to live 100 years with the name father and doesn't have a legitimate son?
Right. Yeah. It sounds like Noah building an ark for however long, and there's not a drop of water falling from the sky.
That's right. That's right. And that guy preached for 120 years and nobody listened to him.
Yeah.
Man.
So do you think that is characteristic of God? Can we say this is generally characteristic of how God works, that in order to test faith, as we'll find in Genesis chapter 22 next, right? In order to test faith, he really does wait until the last possible moment to fulfill his promises. It's how he's going to do it, because otherwise faith actually isn't required.
Right. Yep. I think so. That's his MO. So Red Sea, you've got the Egyptians chasing him down. I mean, how much easier would it be if they just got out of Dodge quickly? But God's leading them with the fire and the cloud. So you kind of get the sense they're kind of wandering, waiting for the Egyptians to catch up. Right. That's God's plan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was reflecting on that on the men's retreat this last Saturday. I preached on Romans chapter 6, which I think Paul has in mind the Exodus, right? You've been set free from slavery to sin. And how you think about how God could have done the Exodus without any of the spectacle, right? You certainly don't need 10 plagues. You don't even need one plague. You could just kill all of Pharaoh and all of the Egyptians then and there, and you could part the Red Sea before the people of Israel arrive. You could water the wilderness so that there's food growing before they get to the promised land, right? He could have done all of those things, and he did not, which is then has this parallel in how he deals with us in our sin, right? So baptism saves you. You've been set free from slavery to sin. It doesn't happen, you don't get the same sort of spectacle of like 10 plagues, but you do get the death and resurrection of Jesus, right? I mean, it's like, that's spectacular. The death and resurrection of Jesus, which is your Exodus event, let my people go. But then there's still this journey in which you have to rely on God. And in Romans 6, it's like you have to rely on God for the ongoing battle against sin. Present not your members as slaves to sin, right? Of course, there's a sense in which you can imagine how God would just make you perfect, right? But he doesn't, because what he wants, is this true? What he wants more than your perfection is that you would trust in him. Is that true?
Well, there is no perfection without trusting in him, right?
Right. So it'd be fraudulent. It'd be fraudulent righteousness if you just had it without trusting God.
Well, so and picture this. So picture he doesn't do the 10 plagues, because he does them, and then right away they start worshiping a golden calf. Like they've seen 10 signs plus one with the crossing of the Red Sea, and they still didn't trust him. So, I mean, what else is there to do?
Right. And what does he say? I mean, he's like, I'm doing these things so that I will be glorified, right, in the sight of everyone. And that's really the point. And maybe this is connected to, right, he knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. Psalm 103. We take a lot of convincing, and it's striking that he's willing to do so much convincing. Of all the people who shouldn't have to say it twice, God is the one who should have to say it only once, and yet he undertakes to say it again and again and again. And like, goes above and beyond in displaying his power and his love for his people. It's like, just so we're clear, 10 times over, I'm more powerful than the gods of Egypt, right? 10 times over, I'm demonstrating this.
Could you call this the weaning process? I mean, I think this really goes really well, because at the beginning of 21 here, verse 8, Isaac is weaned.
Yeah. I mean, Paul takes that up, right? So you're under the guardianship of a schoolmaster for a time, and what does that schoolmaster do under the law? You are both trained in righteousness, third use of the law, but you're also crucified by the law over and over again, right?
Yeah. So the point of weaning, just speaking biologically, would be so that you could spend more time with your father. Because up until that point, you're wholly dependent on your mother, because you've got to constantly be at her breast. But then, as soon as you can start eating meat, right, instead of the spiritual milk, you can move on to meat. Then you can start spending more time with dad out in the fields, like hunting. So Ishmael is going to be a bow. Well, you can't use a bow if you're not weaned yet. So let's go. You have a thought?
I'm just thinking about how you also need to be trained in what constitutes good food, because the unweaned child will stick out his hand and put anything into his mouth and doesn't know the difference between good and bad food, right?
Yep, that's true. So if we're gonna apply this to like the New Testament, so God's our father, the church is our mother, and we have to get weaned off of the breast at some point. But here the idea is then so we could spend time with God the Father, while at the same time coming back to our mother every single Sunday for Sunday brunch. So even after you're weaned, you still love your mother.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at some point that analogy breaks down, but it is so helpful. It's so fruitful. It's like, why you don't, if you in your maturation end up despising your mother, right? Oh, that can only show ingratitude and a lack of humility, right? You've forgotten where you came from.
Right. And the father and the mother are still one flesh. So you can't really have one without the other.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think that the picture, or the notion, I should say, of maturing as the goal is very helpful, because it kind of saves us from only thinking about the doctrine of justification, which is critical, the critical starting place post fall, right? Post lapsus, post lapsum. It is the starting place for, like, you need to be born again, but you don't. But the intention was never that humans would remain infants. Adam and Eve were only a day old for a day, and then they were going to grow up, right?
Yeah. What does Hebrews say? Let us move on from these elementary doctrines.
Right. Which I mean, what are those? Where is that in Hebrews? Because I'm always struck by those elementary doctrines. It's like repentance. Let's move on from Hebrews 6. Let's eat the elementary doctrine of Christ and go on to maturity, not laying again a foundation of repentance from dead works and of faith toward God, and of instructions about washings, the laying on of hands, the resurrection of the dead, and eternal judgment. It's kind of like, that's the creed right there.
Part of me wants to kind of read it a little bit tongue in cheek, where we should be able to move on, and yet we can't. I mean, do you find this way in your preaching? Are you just tempted sometimes to just preach the same thing 2 weeks in a row because it would be fine?
You mean because they won't remember what you said?
Yes.
I don't know. I think I have a feeling people are more astute than that they're paying closer attention. Maybe not in all the details, but I do think that people appreciate it. They would appreciate it. I've often said, you want to make a kid happy, ask him a question that you know he knows the answer to, right? Or tell him to finish the sentence. And people love this in Bible class too, right? So like, finish the sentence, and when they know the answer, it's incredibly gratifying. And it's like, this is why we appreciate. One of the reasons why we appreciate a piece of music is because it is familiar. Maybe not because of the content or the melody is so good, but simply because it's familiar. And in fact, that's one of the I never finished it, but I was working on this Umberto Eco business on beauty, and he had, or maybe it was a different author on beauty. Yeah, a different author on beauty was describing the sense of expectation gratified that is connected with our perception of beauty. So when things are as you expect them to be, you perceive that as beautiful. And my point being, if you preach the same sermon twice, some people would be bored with it. They'd be like, I already heard this. But a lot of people would probably be like, I know what's coming. And if it was a good sermon, that is to say, it'd be worthwhile,
Yeah, for sure. I was good sermon. What's his name? Woodhouse, PG Woodhouse, as a great chapter on this, where they're making bets on if the sermon is gonna go longer than 45 minutes. And I forget, and I'm thinking, wow, this is great. I didn't know we had the latitude to do that. Okay, let's go ahead. But um, he's got in his repertoire, this preacher does certain sermons, and so somebody who's got his money on that he's going to go over knows this certain sermon is long. So he's like, would you preach that one great, really awesome sermon that you have on constancy or whatever it is?
That's good.
And then I was thinking, the familiarity. So my wife took a song from Parks and Rec. I guess it's eggs, bacon, and toast. Start your way the is it what's Jerry's last name? Start your way the Gingrich way or whatever. Eggs, bacon, and toast. So we often have egg, sausage, and toast for breakfast in our household. And my 2-year-old loves singing the song and filling in the blank. So I'll start singing egg, sausage, and she goes toast. And then start your day the she goes Reber way. And she
Yes.
can't she can't resist singing it, even to the point where we're playing hide and go seek and I want to find out where she is. I just start singing it, and then she's yelling it out from the closet where she's supposed to be dead quiet hiding.
Oh, that's so good. There's so much to say there, to think about, right? Like our inability to resist the things that
Right.
are that are tuned into us. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I mean, and that is what makes teaching fun to me, is that you get to see that result, right? You are actually inculcating something that becomes a part of a person in such a way that they can't they can't shake it, right? Kind of like I mean, for better or for worse, maybe this is not true for you, it's true for me. I know, like I have these moments where it's like I can hear my dad saying whatever he would say to me in this given situation, right? I can hear him saying it, and it's because he said it so many times, and I don't. It's like it's not a source of bitterness, right? It's like it's fruitful. My dad, here's my dad, and I know what he would say,
Right. And so how powerful is that when you know the word of God so well that you know what God's going to say?
Right. Which full circle back to Peter and Moses and Elijah on the Mount of Transfiguration. Maybe that's what it was. Like Moses is talking, and Peter's like, "Oh yeah, that I know what Moses would say, and that guy's Moses, right?"
And the key is knowing what he's going to say and embracing it.
Yeah. Right. Right. Not rebelling against it, because that is that's the kind. I'm thinking about counterculture generally, where it's like what's predictable, what's common is thought of as because it's common is thought of as of little value. Somebody who was dressed like a goth yesterday, which is always shocking in the 2020s.
Yeah, today I thought about that. I was like, I haven't seen a goth in a long time.
Right. But of course, the irony was that, like, in wanting to reject common culture, you're just embracing another thing that you have in common with with a group of people, right? Your nonconformity is just conforming to a different standard.
That's right. Yeah, James Sire, The Universe Next Door, a great book, by the way, introducing to all different worldviews. But he had this great comment on postmodernism, where he says the unifying thing with postmodernism is a rejection of a meta narrative. And his next sentence is, but rejecting all meta narratives is a meta narrative in itself.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yep. It's just at this point, it's such low hanging fruit. I was telling you about You kind of have to be a fool to believe that nonsense. I was telling you about reading Alan Bloom on the closing of the American Mind. And just in the first chapter, he was describing how this is like 1986 or 89, late 80s. He's describing how college kids would come to college presuming that there's no such thing as absolute truth. Like that was their presumption from the outset. There's no such thing as absolute truth. And of course, kids coming to college at that point are children of the 60s, right? Born in the 60s. And certainly that was, in the decades previous to that became, was so fully inculcated. But it's such nonsense. It's just absolutely absurd to imagine that there's no such thing as an absolute truth, right?
Yep. We have to do this with everything we think. So theological concepts. So this is where the radical Lutherans get it wrong, or to the point they'll say, well, God doesn't care how you live your life. Just run that through the common sense ringer.
Yeah, right.
Does that work out? No, that's crazy.
Does somebody who died for you not care how you live your life?
That doesn't check out.
Right. Right.
I do want to talk about this one other thing here, where Ishmael goes, or Hagar goes, sorry. Verse 16, she went the distance of a bow shot.
Yeah.
And so when you read that and you don't know the rest of the story, you think, well, that's weird. But then you go on to verse 20 and you learn that Ishmael becomes an expert with the bow. So it's using the measurement of the sun for the mother. There's probably a lot there, but the other place it reminds me of course, is Luke's Passion, where Jesus goes a stone's throw away to pray in the Garden of Gethsemane, which of course ties us to Stephen being stoned later on. But the measurements, and I got to do a lot more thinking about this. There's always a reason for the exact measurement, and then whatever unit they're using too.
Yeah, interesting. I'd never thought about that before. Yeah, how would you describe it? That's funny to think about. Like somebody, she went off so she wouldn't have to look at the death of her child. She went off. Which would you ever say a stone's throw or a bow shot away? What would you say? How would you describe a little ways away?
Yeah, I mean, it depends
She
on
went
how
around
good
the
of a
corner.
shot you are.
Yeah, right.
So,
right. Yeah.
So if it's like he went a golf shot away, okay, well, what's your handicap? But speaking of, so bow shot, then you're thinking of obviously the story of Jonathan and David. You're able to measure it out, however far I shoot. And that's another thing, is a bow is an instrument of death, right? It's a weapon. And so I don't have to go away to see him die. Now, this is incredibly gracious. So obviously Isaac is the messianic seed. Salvation only comes through Isaac. But if Ishmael believes, the salvation belongs to him too. And this is kind of the meta narrative with the whole story. Salvation is going to come through one line of people, but if the people believe in that one, the covenant that they're bringing, the seed, they too have salvation. So there is this aspect of universal salvation for all who believe. It doesn't matter your genetics.
Yeah. That's right, and it's so baked into the Old Testament. It's reminding me, this particular episode, of Psalm 107, which has become one of my favorites. Which it's the very beginning, the first psalm of book 5 of the Psalms, and it has these 4 kind of episodes where people are in trouble of some sort. They cry out to God. God answers their prayer. And then there's this refrain, verse 8, let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of man, right? So this is what's happening here. So here's how the psalm begins. So verse 4, some wandered in desert wastes, finding no way to a city to dwell in, hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted within them. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He led them by a straight way till they reached the city to dwell in. That's Hagar, right? So she's sitting there, and let's see here. She sat down opposite him a good way off. Let me not look on his death. As she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept, and God heard the voice of the boy. And the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, right? Okay, so here's the thing about the psalm, is to connect it with what you just said, is that it has this refrain, let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of men. I prefer it in the King James Version, which says, Oh, that men would give thanks to the Lord for his goodness and for his wonderful works to the children of men, which captures more of this lament about it. Like, instead of it just being a disjussive, like, let them do it, it's like, oh, that they would. Oh, if only they would. Thank the Lord for his goodness and for his wondrous works to the children of men. Because this is incredibly gracious, right? I mean, she has no claim. She could be just cast out. The slave woman and the son of the slave woman could be cast out, and yet God preserves them. You know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is cliche, but I mean, gratitude, just this open thankfulness towards God. It'll change your life.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Huh. There's I'm not sure if I can be able to find it right now, but there's this kind of answer to Psalm 107 that comes later in the Psalms, which basically changes it to the first person. Puts the prayer in the first person. So Psalm 107 is describing how all these bad things happened. They cried to the Lord. He answered them, rescued them. Oh, let them give thanks. And then the Psalms later, towards the end of book 5 of the Psalms, says, I was in trouble. The Lord heard my prayer. I cried out to him. He helped me. Praise the Lord. And it does the thanking of God. It's a whole bunch of these Psalms in the 140s where it happens just like that. That's why the Psalms are so valuable, because I think you could say, not only is it contrary to human nature to thank God, right? So we're ungrateful. We prefer complaint, like you said. Prefer complaint. We're ungrateful. Even when good things happen, when God blesses us, when he delivers us, we are quick to forget. We don't thank him. How do you learn to thank God? Well, you learn the same way that your kids learn to say to please and thank you, right? You make them do it. You put the words in their mouth, right? Would you like to have an extra, would you like to have another helping? No. You mean no thank you, right? Yes, that's what I meant. Right? Did you say please? Right? That's how you do it. And the Psalms do that. They stick those words in our mouths because we need them,
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's how you get to the heart, right? Through the stomach, but also through the mouth. And yeah, we have the parable of the rich fool, and Jesus says, "Do not be covetousness," right? Do not be be aware of that. Well, how could you possibly guard against that? Well, you got to start somewhere. So you're not going to start with the heart because you can't do that, but there are these concrete things you can do.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Hey, you reading anything good, or are you just you consumed with the move?
No, I've got a handful of things going. I got The Closing of the American Mind by Alan Bloom. I got Joe Rigney's Leadership and Emotional Sabotage. I've got I'm rereading Peter Leithart, Deep Exegesis, and then I also picked up Shakespeare, Julius Caesar. I had a hankering for a little bit of Shakespeare, so working on that too.
So speaking of Shakespeare, last year Bruce Timm was on our golf team for the golf scramble for the Lutheran school, and one of my members is named Bruce, so we had two Bruces on the team, and my suggestion for the name was Et2 TWO Bruce A. And the organizer did not submit it. And again this year, I know, it's too obscure. And then this year, I thought of this, no AI needed. He asked, "What should our team name be?" And I thought, "Happy Gilmore Girls." And the girls got dropped, unfortunately. But it was going to be great because next year it was going to be Happy Gilmore Girls too. So
yeah, perfect. You know what? I don't give you enough credit, Josh, for being clever. You're a pretty clever guy. That's good.
Thank you. This is why I like doing the podcast, because I can air out all of my thoughts. I used to blog at www.creedthoughts.com/gov. But now my brain is open to the internet.
That's good.
Hey,
just what we need.
20 episodes in. This has been a great delight. I can't wait till episode number 400. I remember when The Simpsons hit that milestone, and it was a big moment in my life.
Oh, this is gonna be great. We should chart out the future. What chapter of the Bible we'll be in when we reach various ages of our life. That'll be fun. All right. It might be. Oh, I
Can't
probably
wait.
should say that I might not be able to record one for the next couple of weeks here, so it might be September before one gets aired again here. But we'll be back.
All right, cool. We're gonna have just a plethora of thoughts then. That'll be great.
All right. And hit and stop.